celebrating this show that most of the world knows is full of pornographic scenes. And I'm wondering how that, I'm doing the double standard thing.
Yeah.
I learned it from David French.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair question.
The character of our church and our men, pornography and adultery and all that is, and that's what, I don't know how much you've listened to Cross Politics, but that's really like where we beat up really a lot on the home.
Yeah.
And the home works its way out.
And men in particular, you take responsibility.
Because we know that works its way out into the rest of the world. And it's not really the other way around. We really preach, we need some regeneration and some repentance happening at home to work its way all the way out through our politics. But when you talk like that, and I agree with you, and then I know that you have this kind of esteem for Game of Thrones, I find a huge inconsistency in talking about righteousness, holiness, character, and then Game of Thrones thumbs up.
Somebody lit me on fire on Twitter about that several years this summer.
You know what I mean? That seems a little bit
inconsistent.
Yeah, inconsistent. What I know about Game of Thrones, it's not really a Christian show.
The most recent thing I read about it was the girl that had to was getting sick in the bathroom before having to do rape scenes and drinking herself and drunk to try to do the rape scenes.
Horrible.
I mean, I'm just thinking yikes.
So, is your position that you shouldn't see an R-rated movie?
No,
it depends.
I mean, I
saw Passion of the Christ.
No, I mean, should a Christian not see an R-rated movie?
I think we shouldn't see a pornographic
Right.
movie.
No, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
Oh, Game of Thrones was like an R-rated movie.
With
pornographic rape scenes. Where an actress off stage is having nightmares and throwing up in the bathroom.
I mean, I think that
so the reality of what's going on the screen is and Christians are paying money for that.
I think that this goes to a question of what is the line where a Christian can no longer go see a movie or a TV show, and I think that is, an R-rated movie that, I look at this like this. If you're somebody and you go to this thing and you go to a movie and you're going to it and you're finding it titillating, you're finding it arousing, you're finding it something that is, which is the sole purpose of porn. That's the sole purpose of porn. You better leave that theater. Because this thing is damaging your spirit. And that line, for some people, that can even be like a PG-13 comedy. I mean,
we don't watch Disney in my house.
Yeah. I mean, that's just saying. So
Mermaid around here.
So I think that.
But what about what's doing to the people on the screen as well? I mean,
I don't. We have had so many conflicts about what that means over the last many years. I had no idea. Nobody had any. This is something that came out 8 years after the fact. It's awful. It's awful. It's horrible.
But you can't pretend to be fornicating and raping and imagine that someone's having a happy life. I mean, any of those actors and actresses that are participating in those kinds of scenes are not living under the blessing of God. They're and I would say the more graphic and the more violent it is, the more it ought to occur to us that person is very sad.
So, no, I think that a lot of them would disagree with you who are involved in it. A lot of them would agree with you.
But
I think
a woman who's actually going through it would not disagree, Toby.
In that circumstance.
I feel like I'm kind of getting the argument of, hey, if 50 Shades of Grey can be artistic and not turn me on, then I'll watch it.
No. I think that what was Game of Thrones about? What's 50 Shades of Grey about? 50 Shades of Grey is about a horrible, abusive sexual relationship. That's what 50 Shades of Grey is about.
Like most women romance novels.
Right. What is Game of Thrones about? That's not what Game of Thrones is about.
Just because you change the story plot to be more about fighting than it is about raping doesn't make it okay.
I guess the question is, how much can you make art that reflects the world as it is, or reflects truths about the world as it is, or not.
Well, I think the question is more like, I want to make art for that which pleases God. That's the standard.
And it seems to me the Bible does give us the Bible doesn't shy away from wicked things and evil things.
Right.
But I would also say the Bible is not pornographic. So the Bible will tell us that
the Bible exposes the blackness.
David's
of the human heart.
David's son rapes his half sister, and we know that happened.
Yeah. Lot's daughters.
Yeah, but it doesn't bring us into the room in the sense of it, being overly obscene or pornographic.
Sure.
I mean, even Song of Songs is a blessed picture of marital sexual love, but again, even that's not pornographic, even though it explicitly references, the anatomy of the woman's body, but it's not doing it in to use your word earlier, the prurient sense, and not a titillating way.
I guess the question I have is, when you're talking about art, and you're talking about what kind of art can a Christian observe, I just flat out disagree that the only art that a Christian should observe would be art that is ultimately uplifting in some way.
No, but we're not with you. I'm a big Flannery O'Connor fan.
Right.
Okay.
But so then again, we're talking about, so how depictions of violence.
Yeah.
Where?
But the
where's
difference,
the line on a depiction of violence?
The difference there, though, is a depiction of violence can be entirely faked. Someone is not actually having their arm hacked off or blood spurting. But in order to show a sex scene, you are actually showing a couple
being naked,
simulating copulation, and they're naked. She's actually being exposed. It's not simulated, and that itself
if
is.
If it was CGI, would it be okay?
No, because I think there you're still you have the problem there of the eroticization of it and the objectifying.
So again, I think that one of the issues again is I think if you're talking about depictions of art, I think the one of the biggest problems with as you said, is the eroticization of it. The problem in my mind is that if I'm coming into this and it is arousing to me, I got to reject it. And it could be, it could be well short of an actual breast.
There's plenty of people too, though, that also are hardened in the sense that their conscience has been seared, and what ought to, in a normal human being, be arousing, is no longer is because they are porn addicts or whatever, and so they say, well, it doesn't bother me. I can see it. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't arouse me anymore.
Yeah. Well,
and that's a problem.
I think
and then you find out later you're paying for this woman's trauma.
Yeah, which is terrible, horrible. I think that the porn thing, it's not a porn movie, so let's set that aside.
Well,
I think that.
I just read. I didn't watch it. But I read the IMDb, parental guide on it. And that was enough. That was a long section of sex and nudity.
So so this is what happens with a lot of these shows, is that what happens is they try to make a splash by being shocking in season one.
I know.
And then they front load the pornography.
And then
it disappears.
And then the last season, it's
nothing.
Like a conventional drama. Yeah. But look.
But I think sift through
you're not going to be able to articulate to me a universal standard.
No. I guess my question is what David was just asking, which is just that, just underlining a bunch of stuff that you've pressed upon us of the highest character, the place of the church, and in our own repentance, purity,
holiness,
faithfulness to marriage vows, having a good witness. And I think I agree with all that 100%. Honestly, listening to you on the Trump thing, even, and saying, "All right, I'm going to do some more. I'm going to do some more reading. I'm serious. I'm going to go away from this. I'm going to do some more reading."
Yeah.
But then you're, celebrating this show that most of the world knows is full of pornographic scenes. And I'm wondering how that. I'm doing the double standard thing. I learned it from David French.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair question. I think a lot of it is a lot of people have not seen the show and don't understand what it's about, would look at it and say, well, all I've heard is there was this guy on Twitter, this Sorabite guy who really, for some reason, there's this group of people who just have decided they hate me. and just
we don't hate you.
Yeah, just constantly.
We don't know what you're talking about.
I understand those people, though. I really do.
Just constantly.
Yeah.
And so one thing that
Don't ever tag me in one of your Twitter.
Please.
no,
Twitter threads.
It's terrible. It's terrible. So I think it's so funny. He tried to get the stats of how many breasts were exposed over 8 seasons of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I think the place where he got it was a website called Mr. Skin. So to go own me on Twitter, he had to go to Mr. Skin, but whatever. And I think that what ends up happening is we are in a Christian church that there is an absolute agreement that porn, I don't know that anybody can, I've never heard with a straight face argument that you can watch porn. Porn exists for one purpose. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Or I've never heard a straight face argument that there's circumstances in which adultery is okay.
Right.
No.
There's actually Christian sites out there that support porn amongst married couples.
There are who?
Christian sites and Christian communities out there that support porn amongst
I'm sheltered. I've not seen it.
Christian swingers.
Okay, well, I'll say this.
You forgot what world you live in.
Just like there's 35 chapters of Drag Queen Story Hour, there's probably 35 chapters of Christian swingers. Okay, so on the far fringes, you can find weird crap. But in mainstream even Christianity, but also I grew up in a super legalistic environment.
Yeah, me too.
I remember, I'll never forget, love my dad. My dad's the best. But man, would he police my TV. And I remember one time we sat down and we watched Cheers, the TV show Cheers. And he laughed, and then got up, turned it off and said, we're never watching that again.
That was too funny.
And the number of shows that I couldn't watch was a lot bigger than the number of shows that I could watch. And again, I don't know that my dad will watch any of this. The effect on me was not the desired effect.
Right.
Yep.
At all. It was not the desired effect.
Sure.
Yep.
The effect on me was to look at this, to be like, what is out there?
Right.
What is out there?
Attracted you to it.
Yeah. And so I spent a lot of my life trying to resist, it made me more intrigued by this.
Right.
And that's one of the effects that legalism has. Often, there's the law provokes.
Sure.
And so as I grew older in the faith and I had children of my own, you have to ask yourself about those. Not only are you drawing the lines for yourself, you're drawing the lines for your kids.
Yep. You don't want to be hypocrite with kids.
So I drew a different line. It was like, so if there is if you have a pie chart, I had like a 1/8 slice
of what you could
pop culture.
Yeah.
And I kind of maybe gave more of a half slice, and so these are really hard lines to draw. And I think that one of the things that, for me, one of the lines I draw is this thing titillating or arousing or not? Is there a artistic or merit to this that I think is, worth watching?
Value that's valuable artistically.
The Bible draws the line at, nakedness is shameful.
How many kids do you have?
3.
You have 3. Boys or girls?
2 girls, 1 boy.
I have 7.
Awesome.
My wife is pregnant with our 7th one right now. Would you let your daughters act in Game of Thrones?
No. Well, it would depend on the circumstances. I'd let them act in Game of Thrones, but with a no nudity clause.
Would you let them watch it?
Yeah. I mean, my oldest daughter's an adult. She can watch it.
She can do what she wants to do at this point.
She's married. I mean, she's married. She's
you could probably still. I mean, no.
Listen, I don't care what your husband says.
If you're married or not.
My 12-year-old. I mean, the age matters a great deal.
Yeah. Last thing, really fast.
Yeah.
Speaking of art, You went and saw Kanye.
I did.
Can we finish with Kanye?
Yes.
Just a quick 5 minute.
What'd you do? You went and saw Kanye.
Yeah. So this is kind of funny. My son. So again, we've had so many art conversations in our church because my son likes hip hop.
Yep.
Yeah.
Smart kid.
Yeah. Well, but there's a lot of bad stuff in hip hop.
Oh,
There's a lot of good stuff in there.
There's a lot of good stuff. Well, we made the decision, bringing all this back, that we're going to be more lax than strict on the music front. I grew up in a church where it was a cappella. Okay.
Yeah.
You couldn't even listen to Amy Grant.
Yep.
Right.
I would ban Amy Grant too, but for different reasons.
Except for a Christmas album.
So I couldn't listen to Amy Grant. Or, I mean, I couldn't, in our church doesn't know Amy Grant, but I let my son listen to Pusha T. I mean, So these are some people are going to listen to this and go.
What's Pusha T?
He's a rapper out there that Kanye produces.
Okay.
And so anyway, my son has always had this argument in his youth group. Man, God is after Kanye. You can't listen to Kanye's music.
It's kind of true.
You cannot listen to Kanye's music going way back. Going way back.
Right.
And he's always said, there is more to Kanye. And so we had a big family, we had a parental controversy that a couple years ago, my wife and I let my son go to the Life of Pablo concert.
Okay.
And people in our other parents in our church.
How old was he?
He was, junior in high school, about to be a junior in high school, maybe.
13, 14, something like that.
No.
That'd be older
like
than that,
16.
like 16, 17.
Yeah. So other parents.
I was not. I was really advanced. Can't you tell?
Other parents were no.
Yeah.
Okay, so look, I don't.
Yeah.
Maybe they're right.
Right.
I
Federalism at work.
have a lot of grace for how people make these different decisions.
Yeah.
But we said yeah. So, but anyway, that's a long way of saying my son's been saying God's been after Kanye, and then all of a sudden,
Jesus King comes happen.
So, and then he was almost like going back to youth group and just dumping. He was like dunking on
Told you.
From now on, listen to me.
Yeah. And so anyway, we had apparently, I don't know, if something happened to where Kanye, we'd heard a rumor that Kanye was going to be at this big, huge youth rally in East Tennessee, in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, which is a little town outside of Gatlinburg. Okay. And it was open to youth ministries. Yeah. And my wife was like, I want to see Sunday service. So she contacts the youth ministry and they're like, okay, what church are you with? And what's your ministry? And she was like, well, Christ Community Church in Franklin. And she was like, okay, well, we're just kind of going to go from our church. We sort of posed as a family ministry.
We'll ask the elders forgiveness later.
And we went, and I got to say, it was one of the best experiences. So just to sort of set the stage, there's 12,000 kids from, you don't want to draw generalities from the slice you saw, but looks like mainly from rural South, East Tennessee, North Georgia, North Alabama.
Kids are packing heat,
Yeah, right. Everyone's got their hunting rifles.
You're like, is this the Second Amendment rally? Or is this...
or Kanye concert in Eastern Tennessee.
And so kids are coming in from all over. You got your little church fans from Cumberland Presbyterian Church from this place. Lots of Cumberland Presbyterian Church fans. I was more than I've ever seen in one place.
Interesting.
And so you wait. We got there about almost 3 hours in advance in line. And cold. And everyone's in line. The atmosphere is electric. And everyone files in, and it's a circular stage, and there's flowers. It's just like built on it like a mountain of flowers. Okay. And then the music sort of starts, and the choir members come in. Everyone's like, where's Kanye? Where's Kanye? Where's Kanye? And the choir members just keep walking in. You don't see Kanye. You don't see Kanye. And then the choir members circle the stage, looking inward, not outward at the audience, inward at the choir director. And it turns out Kanye had walked in with them, and nobody really saw him. He was just one of the
He's part of the choir.
And so then the choir starts, and it is some of the songs from Jesus is King, and then like How Great Thou Art, and the choir blows the freaking doors off. As far as like raw musical power.
That's so what I'm used to. Like I'm used to that. Yeah, that's.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it was jolting. It was so good.
Yeah.
And then Kanye he's not anywhere to be seen. For 20 minutes. No Kanye.
Right.
Wow.
And then they start, I think it was Selah. Do you remember Selah?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So Selah starts, which to me is one of the just most exuberant worship songs.
I love that song.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah.
So he starts going, he stands up just, and the crazy thing was everyone was so into the moment of the worship that when him stand up, there was a modest additional roar.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like freaking out over Kanye.
Yeah.
It was just,
Stardom,
and then they do Selah with Kanye leading it.
Yeah.
And it was just like one of the greatest worship moments
Yeah.
I've ever
Yeah.
been a part of.
Did you have your cell phone on for that moment?
I did. For a minute
You
of
need
it.
to email me that clip.
I will.
Yeah, email me. I'd love to
I
see
will.
that
It's like,
in that moment.
but the cell phone just doesn't.
Oh yeah.
No, it doesn't.
I know.
It really doesn't capture the.
The thing about that song is it's both. It's like he's telling his own story. It's like it's a testimony, but then it's a fight song.
Yeah.
It's a fight song.
Yeah, that's right.
When it culminates and he's fighting, he's making he's doing that kind of fight at the end. That's the thing that I love
You know,
about it.
Kanye voted for Trump, right?
Yeah.
I just want to say.
So then he sits back down. So he does like 2 or 3 songs, sits back down.
Yeah.
Up comes a pastor.
Yeah.
Who,
Pastor Adam Tyson.
Adam Tyson.
Yeah.
We interviewed him on the show.
Gives 9 minutes,
Yeah.
10 minutes on the prodigal son. Super good.
Yeah.
Just straightforward biblical preaching.
Yep.
Yep.
Sits back down. They start again. Kanye gets up there and he ends it with Jesus Walks with its modified lyrics.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just Jesus Walks, it was Jesus Walks moving in, combined with the spiritual Jesus Walk with me.
Oh, nice.
And it was so powerful. And I love the change where you used to say, I ain't here to turn atheists into believers.
Yeah.
He says,
Yeah.
I'm here to turn atheists into believers.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And then they just silently walk off. And it was not Kanye centered. It was
Everybody says that.
Christ centered.
Wow.
It was God glorifying.
Yep.
I would defy. Like there's all these people who are only God knows what's going to happen in the future. With
Yeah.
God,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But that moment was that moment, and I would defy anybody outside of the old school a cappella churches of Christ who don't want music to the most orthodox person who's going to sit there and like believe I'm going to hell because of Game of Thrones could walk.
I didn't say that.
No, I know.
How strong man is man? Come on.
I know. No, I'm not saying you
But
did.
we're going to start down your thread, though.
But I'm talking. You get
No.
legalistic person, and they could walk in there, and I would dare them to find fault with
Yeah.
a syllable of it.
They will. You know them.
Well, it would be, and there wasn't even merch for sale.
Right.
You know, like
Yeah.
you go to you go to Hillsong United, there are merch, you know.
Interesting.
Wasn't an altar call?
There was an altar call, but it was a 2020 altar call, which was text 554, text saved to 5545. And then they follow up with you.
I'm not mad at that,
let's
though.
put a number there.
I think what you have is somebody who's trying to figure out what's going on with them.
Wait.
And it doesn't have to be like
I'm totally cool with Kanye in the sanctification
sure.
track that he's on.
But if
And
somebody
make mistakes, do things silly, do things
I
well.
want to know who's on the other side of the text message.
Yeah.
That's what I want. to know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not
you know,
Joel Osteen,
I mean,
please.
I was impressed with. I don't know much about the youth ministry, but I was impressed with what I saw.
Yeah.
And they said there were 200 and they come up with a number 243 decisions for Christ.
Yeah.
Who knows what happens?
Yeah.
That's
Right.
above.
Yeah.
That's not my pay grade, or
Yeah.
that's not my job description.
Yeah.
But there was an altar call, a very 2020 altar call. There was
Digital.
a promise of follow up. And I mean, you can easily follow up on that.
sure.
Kids text
Instant.
these days,
It's just
all that stuff,
instant.
yeah.
And so there was an altar call. There was praise. It was classic hymns. It was Jesus is King.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
it was amazing, and it was moving, and it was really It was just a great experience.
That's great.
Interesting.
That's great. We have had you for 2 hours and 20 minutes. I think.
Holy smokes!
Yeah.
You are.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Tolerated us for that long. You're an amazing person.
We can talk to you. I got tons more questions.
We got-
Well, somehow we got to figure out this again.
I like it.
Some other time.
I like it.
That was really great.
We got real.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do.
I think so.